Good evening, world. Good evening, gorgeous ladies. Welcome to day 9 of 31 days to declutter and deconstruct the mind to gain clarity. I'm just happy. I mean, it's almost as if we started yesterday, and here we are, day 9. You know, one thing I believe one day at a time gets each and every one of us closer to target. If perchance you've been following the series, I first want to just quickly remind us of what Woman Call is all about. Just simply a platform where we inspire change through personal growth. Like I always like to remind us, you can't give what you don't have. If you want to be like Gandhi famously said, you want to be the change you see, you would have to begin with yourself. Don't tell me I'm going to have network problems just at the beginning of the program. I need to switch my provider. Just give me a second. I switch. Sorry about that. That's the thing about this live programs, you can't really predict what the connectivity will be like. So hopefully we're back. Yes, I think it's even much clearer. Okay, good. So, like I said, you can't give what you don't have. So, if you want to like excel at whatever it is you do, best you start from within, and that's number one, yourself. So, for this Do Over January series, where we've been talking about how to create the best mental space in order for us to, operate at our optimal capacity in our daily lives. We've spoken about different aspects of, decluttering. We've done the brain dumping exercise. We've done the solution, listing method. It's just been a learning curve for so many people, hopefully. So today we are entering the third part of self-care. We've done the emotional self-care,
Yesterday we handled the spiritual self-care, and today we are going to be examining the social self-care to declutter the mind. Like I said from day one, I know my constituency is that of being a Christian and a staunch Christian. I don't like to use the word believer because I believe that if you're a Christian, you should believe. But well, that's having said that, I try as much as possible not to be preachy, because in the woman called you were just not just a platform of Christian women. So I believe every woman has the capacity, has the obligation to herself, you know, for personal growth. So like I said, I try as much as possible not to sound preachy, but sometimes I can't help it because that's basically who I am. So I try to tend to be teachy as against preachy. So today, like I said, we'll be talking about social self-care. And social self-care is one of the different kind of cares that we can, embrace in order to live not just a life that is beneficial to ourselves, that is self-serving, but a life that also touches other people we come in contact with. And social self-care especially, you know, tends to that. When you're talking about social self-care, you're talking about totally cultivating your feelings. For the past 1 week, we've been talking about feelings, feelings, feelings. So you're totally cultivating your feelings of whether it be love, feelings of appreciation, feelings of gratitude, feelings of connection with other people. I mean, yes, social self-care is not about partying. Most people make the mistake of thinking when somebody is social, the person is, the life of the party. No, that's not what we're examining. We're talking about social self-care, as involving your ability to interact with people you love. It involves talking effectively, working through conflict, addressing the emotional needs of not just yourself, which we did 3 days ago, but addressing the emotional needs of people. When we're talking about social self-care, we're talking about having a supportive group, network of relationships around people whom you can trust, people who you can turn to when it is required that you turn to people who will care for you, people who will be supportive, people around you, people that will help you build a sense of belonging. And hopefully at the end of the day, each and every one of you, you have this sense of being totally connected to each other. My internet is playing up again. So when you're totally connected to each other like this, you begin to understand that is where social self-care starts. I know the thing with this is that if you decide to pursue social self-care, you begin to learn to connect with people at a deeper level. And when you can begin to connect with people at a deeper level, your social needs are being met. So many of us, I will come to that. I don't want to run ahead of myself. Your social needs are being met. And you know what I like to tell people, and that's the truth. No matter what your social preferences are, whether you are an extrovert, whether you are an introvert, it doesn't matter what your social preferences are. Everybody has a need for human connection. I mean, little wonder that song, No Man is an Island. Whether an introvert, whether an extrovert, whatever your social preferences are, whether you're somebody who likes to party, whether you're somebody who just likes to sit with friends, whether you're somebody who just likes to chill, everyone has a need for human connection. And what I always say this is what we need to recognize, right? Is that social self care for person A, his social self-care needs are totally different from the social self-care needs of the next person. And I tell you, Whatever social self-care need you think you need in your life depends solely on your personal preference. And that's the truth. Some people make the mistake because this person is very, very outgoing. It means I have to be outgoing to be social. No, social doesn't necessarily mean outgoing. One person might be the life of the party, just like when you have a couple. The man might be the life of the party, likes to go out and everything. That's his own personal preference for social care and social engagement. But maybe the woman, on the other hand, all she probably needs is, movie nights, chilling with friends, and all of that. It doesn't mean she's not a social person. That is her social self care preference. So before you begin to talk about social self care, I need you to first of all begin to understand what you prefer. When you understand what you prefer, and that's the truth, you will see that you will begin to honor your preferences. You will not say, because my husband is an outgoing person, I have to be an outgoing person. There will be no need for that. You will not say, because and I'm not saying you're going to make it yourself a recluse. Far from it, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that your own idea of social self-care, where the next person, whether it be a spouse, whether it be a friend, you know, the person's idea is, this is Yoruba called Mubomoya. I hear and I branch. That is not your own idea of social self-care. So what you do first of all, before you can talk about or like create a kind of social self-care plan for yourself, or a social self-care, let me say, work kit. Yes, you need to first of all know what your social preferences out are. Rather, for the last couple of days, anything I say, I would probably say, bring out pen and paper. And today is one of such days. Bring out pen and paper. If you can, the next couple of moments, just begin to list out what your social preferences, your personal preferences in terms of social engagement, what they are. Just list it out. First of all, okay, I'm an introvert. I like to sit at home. Yes, you may like to sit at home, but have you considered having to sit with somebody who will give you company? I'm not talking in terms of, well, I don't want Facebook to censor me. So by the time you're able to list out your preferences, one of the first things you will do is you begin to think of activities, think of things you can do, things you will do that will incorporate all of these personal preferences you've talked about. You love sports. That's one of your personal preferences. You begin to think of how you can interact with people when it comes to sports. You love going to the movies. Definitely, you would have your movie partners. So you see, before you can say, I need the right set of people, I need to meet the right people that can engage in my personal preference for social self care, you need to know exactly what it is. So, whatever it is you are now doing, having understood what your personal preferences are, you will refer to them as honoring your personal preferences to afford you the right social self-care you need. I was about to say praise the Lord there, but I can't help it. I have to say praise the Lord. So we're going to go to the next part of this discussion. Having understood, you know, albeit simply what social self-care is, you need to begin to understand how you can build it, how you can develop it. And by the time you do that, you will begin to understand that, look, mine is not bad after all. Yes, I might be an introvert, but I still do know how to interact with people, to have fun. The bottom line about interaction really is to have fun. When I say fun, it's not some hedonistic. Yeah, you can choose to be hedonistic. Well, like I said, it's a matter of personal preferences. But to come, get that to that point where you have not just a nourishing relationship, but you have a relationship you can talk about and just be relaxed in the fact that this social thing I'm doing affords me the mental ease I need. Remember, we're talking about social self care to declutter your mind. The first thing you need to do, you need to look out for, you need to watch out for, let me quickly put it on the screen, is ensure in your social self care plan, build your community with intentions. So many people just go into alliances, relationships without drawing or building a roadmap for that relationship. When you want to have some degree of, mental ease, especially when it comes to your socialization, the first thing you need to do, like I always say, take your pen and paper. Who are those people you call your nearest and dearest friends? Make a list, write their names out. For each person, it might seem actually clinical, but sometimes we need to do these things. It's kind of therapeutic. What exactly do I get from this friendship? What exactly do I get from this alliance? Is it a symbiotic one? Are we like feeding off of each other? Or is it parasitic? Because sometimes we are in friendships, we're in relationships that even when we interact, at the end of the day, we're stressed. We're talking about decluttering our minds. So you must take, a deliberate step to begin to understand who is in your circle, who is in your community, and make sure you build with intentions. If you are with people, like say you're in a faith group, you have a group of friends, maybe you're in a faith group, you pray together and all of that. You must have your terms of engagement, rules of engagement. So many times we just walk blindly into relationships and midway, oh, I feel betrayed. Midway, I never knew we're compatible and things like that. It's because you didn't take the time, you didn't take the effort to truly, albeit clinically, as a matter of fact, because I was discussing this a couple of hours with some people, you didn't get to know whether you had similarities. You didn't get to know whether you were on the same page. You're just carried away by the fact that, oh, I've seen somebody I think I like, and you jump into a relationship. I'm not talking about male female relationship here. I'm talking about relationship amongst pairs, and all that. So if you don't take time to build your community with intentions, your mental health can be threatened because you start the relationship, you start the friendship, and you find out at the end of the day, you really do not have anything in common. That's why we talk about like-minded individuals. Even the Bible tells you can two walk together except they be agreed. So one of the ways you can declutter your mind, you know, do an audit. I encourage you to do an audit of your community, your friends. Sadly, there are things we cannot help. I mean, you cannot help the family you are born into. You cannot help the job you work at. But sometimes, with the jobs we work at, remember when I talked about the brain dumping technique? When you say, okay, I don't like my job, it's easy to say I don't like my job, but when you're doing the brain dumping technique and you're using that solution list system I talked about, you write number one, I don't like my job. No problem. Like I said, in brain dumping, nothing is sacred. Say what you want, say how you feel, and all of that. On that paper, you're the only one that is saying it anyway. But after you have done that, and like I said, the first thing, like I don't like my job, you don't have to elaborate. You can bullet points and all that. Okay, I don't like my job. But if you're somebody who is truly set on decluttering her mind, seeking clarity in order to be, operate at the most optimal level that is available to you, the next thing you would do in such a case, because even your job is still a community, right? You're going to be honest and say why you don't like your job. You know, why of you don't like your job might be you have a boss who gives you too much trouble. You write it down. Then within that your boss who gives you too much trouble, you must also identify what you bring to the table. I'm not the only one in the office and it gives me too much trouble. Is there something about me? Is there this? When we're talking about decluttering of the mind, at the end of the day, there's a lot of self appraisal involved. So even if your friendship with people, you say, this lady, she's always feeding off me, she's always doing this, she's always doing this, she's always doing that. Is there something about you that keeps attracting those kind of people? So you see, by the time you sit down and you begin to be intentional, I'm not saying this so anybody's going to be paranoid or you don't trust your relationships. No, you are doing this so when you do this exercise, you dump it all on a sheet of paper. It saves you carrying mental blocks that most of us carry. We're weighed down. You don't like, and like I said the other day, remember I said, by the time it gets to a point, you might have to confront. So in my perhaps I've built a community I'm not happy with. I'm part of that community. I might not just have built it firsthand, but like a couple of people coming together to build something. If I'm not bold enough to say, I don't like this girl, like Baja, whoever the person is, I don't like this. I feel this way. Then I have no business being in that community with that person. When I'm talking community from two and above, if I don't deal with whatever it is that is my issue, trust me, when I go home, I will have the baggage of mental clutter as a result of unresolved issues. So, if you want your social self care pack, your social self care help kit to benefit you, start number one by building your community with intentions. Number two, I don't want to take too long. Like I promised you, put 30 minutes, but I need to just be like, it was up to 40 minutes today. I don't know. Number two, honor your commitments. You see, some of us, they call us, it's like a joke. Oh, promise and fail. And you know, we laugh about it. And you forget that when you do things, I'm trying to make sure my internet seems to be going off. It seems to be going off. So sorry about that. Just give me a moment. This thing is simultaneously feeding to the Woman Called You group on YouTube and here on Facebook. So I need to make sure, like I said, I do this via a broadcast studio. So it's always fluctuating. It might be showing well here on Facebook, but then on the other platforms, I might be having transmission issues. Okay, good. Sorry. So, like I was saying, honor your commitments. Remember, I said some of us are promise and fail. And we take so much pleasure in, everybody knows I'm not particularly reliable and all of that. But you see, when we talk about social self care, remember I said deepening the connections you have with others. By the time you do things that make people begin to resent you, you might get away with it for maybe a couple of times, like as that person that, you know her now, she will promise something. But by the time people start resenting you, by the time people can't trust you, by the time people say, oh, forget it. I remember back in the day, we used to have this family member who I remember one very famous woman said about him, he's so unbelievably unreliable. By the time you become bad news because you don't honor your commitments, you would have affected other people. And ultimately, they say chickens come home to roost. What goes around comes around. Your mental health. Because by the time people start not necessarily bad mouthing you, by the time people blacklist you, by the time nobody trusts you to do anything, you see some people say, I don't know why she doesn't think I can do it. I don't, and they're bothered. Oh, even in the office, I think she doesn't like me. I think he doesn't like me. Do an audit of yourself. Have you dropped the ball at any point? even with our families. I'll just give you this funny anecdote. My I have this, it's my nephew, yeah, because my sister-in-law's son. When they were younger, my one of my sons was 8. This young boy was 10. They're now in their 20s. I mean, so this was quite a number of years ago. He was about 7, and he came on holiday. And as I was going out, he said to me, "Oh, Auntie Nene, I would like." No, before he said to me, I think I was the one who asked, "What do you guys like?" And he said, "Oh, Auntie Nene, I would like a meat pie or something from Kilimanjaro." And he turned to my son, Blackie, and said, Chibike, am I not going to ask your mom to get anything? And didn't say anything. Won't you ask your mom to get anything? And my son said, I don't even know why you are bothering mommy to buy anything. Oh. Trust me, she won't get it. Ha! It was a wake up call for me because the boy asked him why. He said, forget it. She will always just say she will do it and she will forget. When she comes back, she'll just have an excuse. If my son gets to watch this thing, he will just confirm it. And I realized how terrible in fact, with hindsight, I felt so terrible that day that when I went out, in fact, I chattered. I think I went to Pepperoni that day. I chattered and I brought back for them. But it got me thinking, so you mean this 8-year-old boy had already formed an opinion for me? Trust me, it wasn't a funny thing. I felt it. I felt ashamed of myself. I began to wonder the number of times I had disappointed this young boy. So you see, that's just that. So you can imagine when you consistently dishonor your commitment. Yeah, thank God. This internet connectivity today is giving problems. So you can imagine what it means. You know, you tell somebody, you say, I'll be there by 8. And before you know this, don't you know her? She works on African time. Trust me, very soon it will be a headache for you. And when that begins to happen, your mental health will be threatened. Your mental space will be cluttered. Because remember, we've been talking about decluttering since. Imagine adding this one to all the other issues you have. It's not worth it in the long run. The next thing we're going to be talking about is setting healthy boundaries in your social self care plan. And why do you need to set healthy boundaries? It's important. Remember, I said it the other day, I said don't overcommit when we're talking about why you need to self care, why you need self care in your life. I talked about not overcommitting. The thing about most of us is because we want everybody to like us. We want to be that one that will be famously hailed as, oh, she's so indispensable. If you call her, she's, like I was talking about someone who doesn't honor commitment. So this is now like the other side of the coin, right? This one, on one end, you have somebody who is always dishonoring commitments. On this end, you have somebody who is ever ready to commit. But one thing we need to understand is that in socializing, and this is just the truth, we need to understand that when we're socializing, our lives can become so hectic. Hectic to the point that we can't say no. We are constantly, you know, rescheduling, we're constantly shifting plans, we're constantly, and when we do that most times, like I said the other time, when there's a woman, because I'm talking to women here, gorgeous women, there's a woman who consistently, overcommits herself. Before you know it, you don't have boundaries. But there are some things that will suffer because you want to work so hard. You want to overplease your boss. You want to overplease your friends. You want to overplease that community I talked about in the beginning. Family might most likely suffer. Like I always say, most of the time when we're talking here, I talk from experience. Family will suffer. special events. I mean, with hindsight now, I know, like I said, I'm not going to be preachy here because, like, I love to preach. We sound preachy, but I won't be preachy. I know the number of times I had to miss important things in my youngest school. Thankfully, I've had the time to like deconstruct and restructure and reconstruct myself. Today, I probably would have taken him to school, but because I'm out of town, you know. So I begin to set healthy boundaries with how you spend your time, quality time that would hitherto have been spent with those that care so much for you. That's when we're talking about family, your number one set of, your number one your number one community, so to speak. So you need to understand that when you constantly reschedule, you don't know how to say no, you will do this, you will do that, you are putting your mental health at risk. So many people do that. I don't want to start using certain illustrations because I want you on your own to truly discover where you see you have not set healthy boundaries. There are some people, their social life, you know, they don't have any, I don't even understand, I don't have the right word. They don't have any filter, yes, for their social life. Everything is packed into one. And these same people, remember what I said the other day about overcommitting? You will do all of this, and when you come back home, you will snap at the people you shouldn't snap at because you're overwhelmed. There's somebody who will do for people, and when she gets home, what she ever does is complain. Today, I don't even know. I don't even know. And you wonder, were you coerced to do that thing? You weren't. But because you couldn't, you failed to set healthy boundaries. Yes, you're socializing, but within that circle, have you been able to set boundaries? That's why you see, I have this friend back then. If she comes into a place like a gathering, she will say, by 2, I'll be out of here. I'm telling you, once it's 2, she carries her bag and she leaves because she has her boundaries. She knows that her time, her 24-hour time is planned. But some of us, we get so carried away. Okay, they say we should socialize, and we get so carried away. At the end of the day, so many things are left undone. Then, when you start running around like a headless chicken, you realize that you are putting not just your body under strain, but ultimately, your mental space is threatened. The next one we're going to go to is, and it's so important. I've said this, I'm beginning to sound like a broken record, but you must know to seek for help when needed. Some people have come to think that when you seek for help, it's a sign of weakness. Well, I would admit that I was one of such people. But I remember, like I shared the other day, this lady who would always say that if she has a boil in her nether region, she would quickly say it. So perhaps help might come. So I'm not saying somebody should become a nuisance. That's not the thrust of my discussion. I'm just simply saying, for your mental health, do not hesitate to seek for help when needed. And that's when the big issue comes out. Are you in the right community? Are you in a place where you can seek for help and get the help you need? Are you in a place where you can seek for help and your story is not on the 9 o'clock news, or not even 9 o'clock news? This is of social media. It can be terrible. But guess what? Seeking for help, especially when you have the right network, you have the right community, it's not a sign of weakness. So many times it might just be the lifeline you need. So I'm saying to a gorgeous woman today, do not hesitate to seek for help when you need it. Then the last one I'll be um, examining today is positive social media interactions. You know, it's clear that these days, one of the things that can actually make us lose our minds, that can make us lose our minds, is social media. It can make us lose our minds. You see all kinds of engagement, but I just want to encourage us that, see, if you have been caught up in this vicious circle of vicious social media engagement, you can choose to just take a break from social media. I remember there was a time every 3 months, first 3 months of the year, actually when I was really into political commentating, I just couldn't, because sometimes, after you've argued for back and forth, I remember then I used to actually physically feel bile rise up in my throat, you know. And this is for people who I'd never met and probably would never meet. But before you know it, you're having a headache. You're sleeping at night and you're imagining. Then come to talk of these days where there are trolls. People think trolling is just a, blase phenomenon. It is terrible. People have committed suicide because of trolling. And tell me, before the act of suicide, there's been the act of, you know, heightened mental depression brought on by trolling. Such a mind has to be decluttered. And how can your mind be decluttered? Because it's a social self care. Try to either win yourself gradually off social media, choose to have a social media fast. Decide that you will engage only in positive social media interactions. Like now, I tell you, since I recently took up, candling, if I open my feed at any one time, oh, this candle group, that candle group, we're seeing people talking about, oh, this candle, see. So sometimes to see my feed, you'll be wondering, "Ah, is this woman in this country?" Because and other things I have interest in, millinery. Oh, you see my feed, because that's what I try as much as possible to feed my mind with, because I've always loved social media. There was a time I used to actually put on my profile, social media enthusiast. But now, having come to understand that it had a very, very serious impact on my mental health. So one of the things we need to look out for if we're engaged in social self-care, especially one where we want our mind to be decluttered, there's enough issues as it were to now add the issue of social media problems. Other ways we can actually help beef up our social self care: call people, text a friend, call a friend. You know, this one you might think it's a joke. Most people join book clubs, create book clubs, because your mind, it takes your mind away from all the hula bula of your day, or hula balu of your day, rather. Form a book club, start one, join a book club. When you see all these Caucasians and the rest of them having pets, in fact, the other day we went somewhere and the people, they had this cute little puppy. I don't know if it's a puppy or whether that's the adult dog, but because it was really cute. And I could just see the interaction between the owner and the pet. And I was like, are you sure I will not get a dog? But when I started thinking of the care, nobody told me to just say, in fact, leave that one. This is this is totally out of your purview. Another thing you can actually do, show people that you care for them. When you see all these um Caucasians and the rest of them, sending flowers, that's all part of social self-care, because it's an interaction with another person. Except for most people that will send flowers to themselves. But that is interaction. So many things you can do. Celebrate other people's success. Don't begrudge other people their success. Celebrate their success. Most people don't understand. They think by begrudging other people's success, it makes you, you know, it validates you. No, it doesn't. So we must also, in this season and beyond, truly, because the way it is now, you hear of increased levels of depression, increased cases of depression, and the like. So I'll just simply say, choose to be happy. Because if your social self care, remember that song by, what's his name now, that says, "Cause I'm happy." Seek to create avenues of joy for yourself. Anything that makes you happy. When I'm saying anything that makes you happy, remember I said self care. Self care that I've been talking about for the last couple of days. It's not Machiavellian. It's not the end that justifies the means. No, you must make sure self care is unselfish. You must make sure self care is unselfish. So the next thing I now like to be talking about, like I said, I'm not a financial person per se. I I'm still trying to get somebody who would come to speak on financial self-care, because financial self-care, if you get it right, will help you declutter your mind. Everything, you will get clarity. So I'm still looking for someone who can come speak on that, or I will just give the, how they call it, financial self-care for dummies. Because when it comes to financial self-care, I'm still in the probationary stage, as maybe perhaps somebody watching is. So I'm thinking about that being day 10. But if I can't get, I probably would defer it towards the end, when I'm sure I'll get somebody who can come to speak on financial self care, because it's very, very important. Most people have had mental breakdowns and such, because they've not been able to manage their finances. I don't think the person will talk in terms of naira and kobo. No, it's to kind of provide us with a help self kit, if I dare describe it like that, that would help us, plan our financial self-care, so we are not overwhelmed by thoughts of bills, thoughts of, you know commitments, financial commitments, and the likes. Because sadly, that's one of the highest reasons why people have mental fatigue and fall into depression. So finally, I would just like to round up by saying to somebody who is watching this that, look, no matter what it is, no matter where you are, whether you call yourself an introvert, whether you call yourself an extrovert, know that even as this year progresses, be intentional with your social self care activities. Be intentional with it. I talked about building community. You know, I want you to write down people in your lives, special people in your lives. Write their names down. Decide that before the end of January, you will honor them in a way that honors you. It's not about giving them money. You can just give a little gift, or write a letter, or do something that will honor them. And when you honor them, you're honoring yourself. That's social self care. The thing about self care, social self care, when you are showing regard for one person, you are doing the same for yourself. The Japanese have a culture, because I've worked with them in the past. You know, on people's birthday, they give gifts to other people, and they also receive. Why do you think people will come for your party and you now give them party pack? Is it not you having the party? They're supposed to bring presents for you, and that is it. But when they give you presents, when you give them a party pack, you are honoring them for having honored your invitation. So you see, if in this year we can normalize honoring every relationship we find ourselves in, you'll begin to see that your relationships will uplift you. Even if it's friendship, they will energize you. Any relationship that is depressing you, any friendship that is depressing you, any social interaction that is depressing you, it's not good for your mental state. It is not good for your mental state. And you are not going to sacrifice your mental state for any kind of community. You're not going to sacrifice your mental state, your mental health, clutter your mental space because you want people to like you. You're not going to clutter your mental space because you want to be the flavor of the month. I remember one day when I said, you know, everybody cannot like me, I'm not ice cream. I remember somebody responded and said, even ice cream is not liked by everybody. So we've spoken about social self-care today. Ensure you look out for your social life. Ensure that you are not overwhelmed or you suffer burnout because you're in any relationship. Even at your jobs, when you are feeling burnout, take a breather. Remember, no man is indispensable. God bless you. See you tomorrow. I hope I could. I hope I succeeded in making some form of sense. Good night. God bless you. Thanks for watching.